My mother-in-law was a very funny and cool woman. She and my wife were really close, and sadly, she passed away when our son was about 4 months old. Flash forward a few years. We lived in a 1930s era craftsman house in Pasadena, California. Our son was about 3 at the time. I was giving him a bath one night, and he starts looking over my shoulder. Not at random stuff, but at something. A moment passed, and he asked me why my grandma calls Mommy a funny name. I asked him what he meant, thinking he was talking to my mom. He then says, "Why does Grandma call Mommy Birdie?" My mother-in-law's nickname for my wife. I was really set back by this. My wife and I never used that nickname. It was just what her mom called her since she was a baby. I asked him where he heard that. He replied,
"The farmer told me."
I asked him who the farmer was, and he replied, his friend. I told my wife this story later on, and she, of course, was reduced to tears over the whole nickname thing. We both knew there was no way for him to know this, and we just kind of marveled at it. Flash forward to the next weekend, and my son is playing in his room. My wife is at work, and I'm at home. I hear him start talking like he's having a conversation. He says things like,
"No, I don't know that."
then some laughing. I went into his room and asked him what he was doing, and he says that he was playing. I asked with who, and he told me,
"The farmer?"
At this point, I'm already thinking about the Exorcist movie and Captain Howdy. It's a little unsettling. I asked him where the farmer was. He says he left when I came in. So my wife gets home, and I tell her what happened, and now she's just as weirded out as I am. We have no idea what to do, and figure if it happens again, we'll have to do something. A few days later, in the middle of the night, we both hear our son say,
"Grandma says you and I can't be friends anymore."
The wife and I went to go check on him, both of us a little freaked. He's just sitting up in bed. I ask if he's okay, and he says, "Yeah. Grandma says I can't play with the farmer anymore." He never once mentioned the farmer again. Not ever. He's 13 now, and doesn't remember any of it. But we do. In high school, I had a good friend named Steve. One day, freshman year, about 2007, he told my group of friends about an odd turn of events that happened to his brother, Tim, a couple years prior. Tim went to college somewhere in New Hampshire. One night, around 2 a.m., Tim and his good friend decided they needed Dunkin' Donuts, even though the nearest Dunkin' Donuts was across state lines. I don't know much about New Hampshire's geography, but I'm told this trek involved going through a narrow highway that takes them through some woods. On the way back from Dunkin' Donuts, a mysterious car pulled out in front of them on the highway. It was a red compact car with the markings scratched off, and its only defining feature was its license plate that had a black O and a green M. Around this time, Tim describes weird coincidences happening, like his cell phone losing service and the jazz station playing Smells Like Teen Spirit. But I'll admit, those could have just been weird coincidences. At this time, Tim and his friend were sensing some bad juju coming from the red car. So Tim let his foot off the gas and was happy to just let the other vehicle go off his own way. But the red car wasn't done with them. As soon as Tim slowed down, the red car did the same. Tim thought this was weird, but maybe if he floors it, he could get around the car. But when Tim sped up, the red car did the same. Tim and his friend were freaking out at this point and had no idea what they were dealing with. But they saw a curve up in the road ahead. They saw the red vehicle go around it, and they decided to just stop. Their adrenaline was pumping, and they weren't sure how long they sat there. But after what felt like 20 minutes, they worked up the courage to continue on their way. Maybe the red car would have mercy on them. But as soon as they got around the corner, the red car was there. The exact same distance as they last saw it, matching their speed. The red car was clearly without mercy. Tim and his friend were rightfully scared for their lives and relented to just going forward and hoping they could get out of this alive. Eventually, there was a fork in the highway. One led towards the college town, while the other led further out into the woods. Our heroes went home, while the red car ventured into the unknown. Tim never saw that red car again. I was told this story my freshman year and was convinced it didn't happen. And even my buddy Steve wasn't exactly sure of its authenticity. But around 2008-2009, I was listening to the local talk radio station while doing some homework and heard a news bulletin. There was a murder in a neighboring county the previous night, and the sole witness saw a car leaving the scene of the crime. She described it as a red compact car with a license plate that had a black O and a green M. I'm in suburban Orange County, California. What is that red car doing all the way over here? Maybe I was just hearing things. I ran into Steve the next day at school, and he heard the same report. We learned two things that day. One, neither of us were crazy. And two, that red car with the O and the M in the license plate was real. This previous May, my friend Blake was on his way home from dropping off his girlfriend around 2 a.m. For some reason, he decided to take a highway that led through a canyon on his way home. While driving, a car pulled out in front of him. It was a red compact car with a license plate that had a black O and a green M. Blake was familiar with the stories and became rightfully scared and fell as far behind that red car as the red car would let him. When they reached near the end of the canyon, the red car did a U-turn and went back while Blake continued home to change his pants and sleep. Now the story doesn't end here, as an anonymous user replied to this. I live in Southern California, and in late June of that year, I got a call from a pregnant friend who needed to go to the hospital around 2 a.m. in the morning. I live in a nice part of town and was driving the winding road toward the freeway to get to my friend's house when a red compact car with the plate OM pulled out in front of me from a side street. They went slower than usual and made sure to block me from going around them. I figured they were some super drunk and called the local police. Passing them eventually, and got onto the freeway. Once on the freeway, that red car passed me in the emergency lane, seemingly out of nowhere. They exited the highway, and I never saw them again. Moral of the story: if you see a red compact car with a license plate of OM, stay very, very far away.